Hey guys, this is Mr. Richmond. I'm coming to you from my house right now. Before I get started reading to you, I need to talk to you guys about something. And it's this. We're going to have to be careful. We wanted to have a normal start to the school year. It's not happening. Okay? It has not happened. We would like to have normal. We would like to have, fun things, pep rallies, this kind of nonsense. Or those kind of fun things, I should say. If we're going to have them, then you guys are going to have to do a few things. And this is what you're going to have to do. First of all, stay out of each other's face. Okay? Do not get on each other. One thing I like about St. Martin is the kids are really nice kids. You guys like, to high five each other and, give each other knuckles in the hallway, hug, that kind of stuff. I like that about St. Martin. I like doing those kind of things with y'all. I like, patting you guys on the back. I like high-fiving you, shaking your hand, hugging you when you do well. I like that. But right now, guys, we're going to have to avoid it. Also, you've got to wash your hands or sanitize your hands regularly and thoroughly, okay? You've got to make sure that you keep your desk clean, that you keep your desk as sanitary as possible. In my room, I have plenty of sanitizing wipes in the back. I want you to get up and get those when you want. Now, you might need to ask permission from your teacher. If he or she is giving you an instruction at the time, they might need a minute, but you need to do that as often as you need to do to feel comfortable. I would specifically do it when I walked into the room. Now look, you can use one wipe to do probably 4 desks, okay? So let's be conservative with them. We don't need to do one wipe for every desk. We need to be conservative. We don't need to run out, but you need to keep your area clean. So stay out of each other's face. Keep your area clean. Hands to yourself. And one more thing, and nobody wants to do this. Y'all may have noticed I've been wearing masks. I wear masks during class change because there's so much congestion in the hall. I told y'all on the first day of school, I would wear a mask anytime I approached any of you. Say I walked to your desk to help you with something. You guys need to consider doing that. It's time. Okay? It's time. If you look in my classroom cabinet, the one that says school supplies, I've got masks in that cabinet. If you would like a mask, tell your teacher, your substitute, that you would like a mask. You'll get one. If it runs out, I will go buy more. Okay? We have got to stay safe. No one dislikes masks more than me. But it's what we're going to have to do right now. You guys have got to practice cleanliness, sanitation, and safety for your own good, for the good of your teachers, for the good of your family, for everybody at this point. Okay? You've got to do it. Mr. Richmond, I don't want to wear a mask. Well, I can't make you wear a mask. But I'm going to tell you that you should. All right? You should. Now, that said, our story today is called Miss Awful. I have some paper copies in the classroom. I'll also put a link on your Canvas. So if you go to my Canvas page, you'll see the link to Miss Awful. If you want to follow along that way, that's fine. Now, if you're on that computer doing Canvas, you are to do nothing else. We're not going to another, well, I already read the story. Good for you. You're not going to another page. You can look at the Canvas page. You can look at the Miss Awful page. No, you can't go check Miss Dent's Canvas. You can do mine. You can do Miss Dent's and Miss Dent's class. So if you want to use your Chromebook, I'm cool with that. But you've got to be on my Canvas page with this story. All right, now what I was about to do is I'm about to read this to you. But before I do, I want to talk to y'all about what a pun is. The word is pun, P-U-N. Okay, pun. A pun is a short play on words that has an ambiguous meaning, often resulting in a humorous effect. Play on words that has an ambiguous meaning, often resulting in a humorous effect. Now, Let me explain that. A play on words resulting in an ambiguous meaning. Ambiguous means more than one. So a pun is going to have two meanings at least, maybe even three if it's super clever. Okay, that's a pun. And it's often going to be kind of silly and sometimes cringy, like, oh, God, that was a bad joke. But it will be an ambiguous meaning, more than one meaning, with kind of a humorous effect. Now, an example of a pun. I told one of my classes this one last week, so if you already heard this one, sorry. But it would be this. So your mom makes a blueberry cobbler, and you tell your mom, oh my God, Mom, this cobbler is delicious. This cobbler is very good. That would be a pun. It's a terrible joke, isn't it? But you can see that it's got an ambiguous meaning. Very good as in very good, and then very good as in blueberry. So ambiguous, more than one meaning, humorous effect. So let's get to looking at Miss Awful here. Here we go. The whole episode of Miss Awful began for the Clarks at their dinner table one Sunday afternoon. Young Roger Clark was explaining why he could go to Central Park with his father instead of staying home to finish his homework. Miss Wilson, his teacher, wouldn't be at school tomorrow, so who'd know the difference? She has to take care of a crisis, Roger explained. It's in Omaha. What is? His older sister, Elizabeth, inquired. For a third-grade kid, Roger, you talk dopey. You fail to make sense. Roger ignored the insult. His sister was a condition of life he had learned to live with, like lions or snakes, poisonous ones. Teetering, as always, on the tilted back chair, feet wrapped around the legs, he continued, till Miss Wilson gets back, we're having some other teacher. She flew to Omaha yesterday. He pushed some peas around on his plate and was silent a moment. I hope her plane don't crash, he said. Roger's mother patted his hand. A lively, outgoing youngster, as noisy and rambunctious as any 8-year-old, he had another side to him, tender and soft, which worried about people. Let the blind man who sold pencils outside the 5 and 10 on Broadway be absent from his post, and Roger worried that catastrophe had overtaken him. When Mrs. Loomis, a neighbor of the Clarks in the Greenwich Village brownstone, had entered the hospital, Roger's anxious queries had not ceased until she was discharged. And recently, there was the cat, who had nested in the downstairs doorway at night. Roger had carried down saucers of milk, clucking with concern. Is the cat run away? Don't it have a home? Virginia Clark assured her son, you'll have Miss Wilson safely back before you know it. It's nice that you care so. Roger beamed with relief. Well, I like Miss Wilson. She's fun. Last week, for instance, when Tommy Miller got tired of staying in his seat and lay down on the floor, he did what? Roger's father was roused from his post-dinner torpor. Sure. Pretty soon the whole class was lying down. Know what Miss Wilson did? If you'll notice, Mother, Elizabeth interjected, he has not touched a single pea. She lay down on the floor too, Roger went on ecstatically. She said we'd all have a rest. It was perfectly normal in the middle of the day. That's what I love about St. Jeff's. It's fun. Fun? Snorted his sister. School isn't supposed to be a fun fest. It's supposed to be filling that empty noodle of yours. Miss Wilson got down on the floor, Mr. Clark repeated. He had met Roger's teacher on occasion. She had struck him as capable, but excessively whimsical. She was a large woman to be getting down on floors, Mr. Clark thought. What did the class do next? He asked. Oh, we lay there a while. Then got up and did a Mexican hat dance, Roger answered. It was swell. I'm sure not every day is as frolicsome, Mrs. Clark countered, slightly anxious. She brought in a dessert, a chocolate mousse. Roger's story sounded typical of St. Jeffrey's. Not that she was unhappy with his school. A small private institution, while it might be called overly permissive, it projected a warm, homey atmosphere, which Mrs. Clark found appealing. It was church-affiliated, which she approved of, and heaven knows its location a few blocks away from the brownstone was convenient. True, Roger's scholastic progress wasn't notable. His spelling, for instance, remained atrocious. Friendly as St. Jeffrey's was, Mrs. Clark sometimes did wish. Roger attacked dessert with a lot more zest than he had shown the peas. So, can I go to the park with you, Dad? I've only got spelling left, and who cares about that? Before his mother could comment, he was up from the table and racing toward the coat closet. Okay, Dad? I didn't tell you could go. I didn't even say I'd take you, Mr. Clark objected. He happened at that moment to take a glance at his waistline and reflect that a brisk hike might do him some good. He pushed his chair back. All right, but the minute we return, it's straight to your room to finish your spelling. Aw, thanks, Dad. Can we go to the boat pond first? We will not, cried Elizabeth, elbowing into the closet. We'll go to the sheep meadow first. Roger was too happy to argue. Pulling on his jacket, he remarked, Gee, I wonder what the new teacher will be like. Ready for your coat, Dad? It was just as well that he gave the matter no more thought. In view of events to come, Roger was entitled to a few carefree hours. I want y'all to listen to that again. It was just as well that he gave the matter no more thought. In view of events to come, Roger was entitled to a few carefree hours. Now I want y'all to... Y'all smell that? Addie Jelanovich, do you smell that? It smells like foreshadowing. Next page. Monday morning at school started off with perfect normalcy. It began exactly like any other school morning. Elizabeth had long since departed for the girls' school she attended uptown, when Mrs. Clark set out with Roger for the short walk to St. Jeff's. She didn't trust him with the Fifth Avenue traffic yet. They reached the school corner, and Roger skipped away eagerly from her. The sidewalk in front of the school already boasted a large, jostling throng of children, and his legs couldn't hurry Roger fast enough to join them. Indeed, it was his reason for going to school promptly, to have time to play before the 8:45 bell. Listen up, Ben Treelor. Roger's school bag was well equipped for play. As usual, he'd packed a supply of baseball cards for trading opportunities, a spool of string in case anybody brought a kite, a water pistol for possible use in the lavatory, and a police whistle for sheer noise value. Down the Greenwich Village sidewalk he galloped, shouting the names of his third-grade friends as he picked out faces from the throng. Hiya, Tommy. Hey, hiya, Bruce. Hi, Steve. You bring your trading cards? Look back at the list of stuff he brought. Trading cards, a police whistle, water pistol. Caleb Crabtree. Does it sound to you like Roger is there to learn or to play? That's right. Exactly. He's there to play. Let's continue. By the time the 8:45 bell rang, St. Jeff's used a cowbell, one of the homie touches. Roger had finished a game of tag, traded several baseball cards, and was launched in an exciting jump the hydrant contest. Miss Gillis, the school secretary, was in charge of the bell, and she had to clang it extensively before the student body took notice. Clomping up the front steps, they spilled into the downstairs hall, headed in various directions. Roger's class swarmed up the stairs in rollicking spirits. Tommy Miller, Bruce Reeves, Joey Lambert, the girls forming an untidy rear flank behind them, shrill with laughter. It wasn't until the front ranks reached the third grade classroom that the first ominous note was struck. Hey, what's going on? Jimmy Moore demanded, first to observe the changed appearance of the room. The other children crowded behind him in the doorway, instead of a cozy semicircle, as though we're seated round a glowing hearth, Miss Wilson had described it. The desks had been rearranged in stiff, rigid rows. Gee, look, the desks are in rows, commented Midge Fuller, a plump little girl who stood blocking Roger's view. Midge was a child given to unnecessary statements. It's raining today, she would volunteer to her classmates, all of them in slickers. Or, there's the lunch bell, gang. The point to Roger wasn't that the desks had been rearranged. The point was, why? As if in answer, he heard two hands clap behind him as loud and menacing as thunder. "What's this? What's this?" barked a stern, raspish voice. "You are not cattle, milling in our pen. Enough foolish gaping. Come, come, form into lines." Heads turned in unison, mouths fell agape. The children of St. Geoffrey's had never formed into lines of any sort. But this was not the cause of their shocked inertia. Each was staring with a sensation similar to that of drowning at the owner of the raspish voice. She was tall, straight as a ruler, was garbed in an ancient tweed suit whose skirt dipped nearly to the ankles. She bore a potted plant in one arm and Miss Wilson's roll book in the other. Rimless spectacles glinted on her bony nose. Her hair was gray, like a witch's, skewered in a bun. And there was no question that she had witch's eyes. Roger had seen those same eyes leering from the pages of Hansel and Gretel. Identical they were. He gulped at the terrible presence. "Form lines, I said. Girls in one, boys in the other." Poking, prodding, patrolling back and forth, the new teacher kneaded the third grade into position and ruefully inspected the result. "Sloppiest group I've ever beheld. March!" She clapped time with her hands, and the stunned ranks trooped into the classroom. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Girls on the window side, boys on the wall. Stand at your desks. Remove your outer garments. You, little miss, with a vacant stare. What's your name? J. A voice squeaked. "Speak up, I won't have mumblers." "Jane Douglas." "Well, Jane Douglas, you will be coat monitor. Collect the garments a row at a time and hang them neatly in the cloakroom." "Did you hear me, child? Stop staring." Normally slow-moving, Jane Douglas became a whirl of activity. Charging up and down the aisles, piling coats in her arms, the new teacher tugged at her tweed jacket. "Class be seated, hands folded on desks," she barked, and there was immediate compliance. She next paraded to the windows and installed the potted plant on the sill. Her witch's hands fussed with the green leaves, straightening, pruning. "Plants and children belong in classrooms," she declared, spectacles sweeping over the rows. "Can someone suggest why?" There was total silence, punctured by a deranged giggle, quickly suppressed. "Very well. I will tell you. Plants and children are living organisms. Both will grow with proper care. Repeat. Proper. Not indulgent fawning or giving in to whims. Scrupulosity." With another tug at the jacket, she strode, ruler straight, to the desk in the front of the room. "I am Miss Orville. Orville, she spelled. "You are to use my name in replying to all questions." In the back of the room, Jimmy Moore whispered frantically to Roger, "What'd she say her name is?" Miss Orville rapped her desk. "Attention, please. No buttering in the back." She cleared her voice and resumed. "Prior to my retirement, I taught boys and girls for 46 years. She warned. "I am beyond trickery, so I advise you to try none. You are to be in my charge until the return of Miss Wilson, however long that may be." She clasped her hands in front of her and trained her full scrutiny on the rows. "Since I have no knowledge of your individual abilities, perhaps a look at the weekend homework will shed some light. Miss Wilson left me a copy of the assignment. You have all completed it, I trust? Take out your notebooks, please. At once! At once, I say!" Roger's head spun dizzily around. He gaped at the monstrous tweed figure in dismay. Book bags were clicked open, notebooks drawn out. What was he to do? He had gone to his room after the outing in the park yesterday, but alas, it had not been to complete his assignment. He watched, horrified, as the tweed figure proceeded among the aisles and inspected the notebooks. What did she say her name was? Awful? Was that it? Miss Awful? Biting his lip, he listened to her scathing comments. "You call this chicken scrawl penmanship? Rip!" A page was torn out and thrust at its owner. "Redo it at once. It assaults the intelligence." Then, moving on. What is this maze of ill-spelled words? Not a composition, I trust. Ill-spelled words? He was in it for sure. The tweed figure was heading down his aisle. She was 3 desks away, no escaping it. Roger opened his book bag. It slid from his grasp and with a crash fell to the floor. Books, pencil case spilled out, baseball cards scattered, the water pistol, the police whistle, the spool of string. Ah, crowed Miss Awful. Instantly at his desk, scooping up the offending objects. We have come to play, have we? And she fixed her witch's gaze on him. Long before the week's end, it was apparent to Virginia Clark that something was drastically wrong with her son's behavior. The happy-go-lucky youngster had disappeared as if down a well. Another creature had replaced him, nervous, harried, continuously glancing over his shoulder, in the manner of one being followed. Mrs. Clark's first inkling of change occurred the same Monday. She had been chatting with the other mothers who congregated outside St. Jeffrey's every afternoon at 3 to pick up their offspring. A casual assembly, the mothers were as relaxed and informal as the school itself, lounging against the picket fence, exchanging small talk and anecdotes. That darling cowbell, laughed one of the group at the familiar clang. Did I tell you Anne's class is having a taffy pull on Friday? Where else in the frantic city of New York? The 3rd grade was the last class to exit the building on Monday. Not only that, but Mrs. Clark noted that the children appeared strangely subdued. Some of them were actually reeling, all but dazed. As for Roger, eyes taut and pleading, he quickly pulled his mother down the block, signaling for silence. When enough distance had been gained, words erupted from him. No, we don't have a new teacher, he flared wildly. We got a witch for a teacher. It's true. She's from Hansel and Gretel, the same horrible eyes, and she steals toys. Yes, he repeated in mixed outrage and hurt. By accident, you happen to put some toys in your book bag, and she steals them. I'll fool her. I won't bring any more toys to school, he howled. Know what children are to her? Plants. She did. She called us plants. Miss Awful, that's her name. Abigail Atkinson. Roger just told a lie to his mother. What's the lie? Speak up, I can't hear you. Okay, I still can't hear you. This is the lie. He said that he accidentally brought those toys in his book bag. Do you guys think he accidentally put all those toys in his book bag? He also said that she called them plants, which he did not. She said that they're like plants because you got to take care of them correctly. Now, let's keep going. Such was Roger's distress that his mother offered to stop at the Schraffs on 13th Street and treat him to a soda. Who's got time for sodas? He bleated. I have homework to do. Punishment homework 10 times. 10 words, 10 times each on account of the witch's spelling test. 10 words, 10 times each, Mrs. Clark repeated. How many words were on the test? 10, moaned Roger. Everyone wrong. Come on, I gotta hurry home. I don't have time to waste. Refusing to be consoled, he headed for the brownstone in the desk in his room. On Tuesday, together with the other mothers, Mrs. Clark was astonished to see the 3rd grade march down the steps of St. Jeffrey's in military precision. Plop, plop, the children marched, looking neither to the left nor right, while behind them came a stiff-backed, iron-haired woman in a pepper and salt suit. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, she counted, then clapped her hands in dismissal. Turning, she surveyed the assemblage of goggle-eyed mothers. May I inquire if the mother of Joseph Lambert is among you? She asked. I'm Mrs. Lambert, replied a voice meekly, whereupon Miss Orville paraded directly up to her. The rest of the mothers looked on, speechless. Mrs. Lambert, your son threatens to grow into a useless member of society, stated Miss Orville in ringing tones that echoed down the street. That is, unless you term watching television useful. Joseph has confessed that he views 3 hours per evening. Only after his homework's finished, Marjorie Lambert allowed. Madam, He does not finish his homework. He idles through it, scattering mistakes, higgledy-piggledy. I suggest you give him closer supervision. Good day. With a brief nod, Miss Orville proceeded down the street, and it was a full minute before the mothers had recovered enough to comment. Some voted in favor of immediate protest to Dr. Jameson, St. Jeffrey's headmaster, on the hiring of such a woman, even on a temporary basis. But since it was temporary, the mothers concluded it would have to be tolerated. Nancy Reeves, Bruce's mother, kept staring at the retreating figure of Miss Orville, by now down the block. I know her from somewhere, I'm sure of it, she insisted, shaking her head. The next morning, Roger refused to leave for school. My shoes aren't shined, he wailed. Not what Miss Orville calls shine. Where's the polish? I can't leave till I do them over. Roger, if only you'd thought of it last night, sighed Mrs. Clark. You sound like her, he cried. That's what she'd say. And it gave his mother something to puzzle over for the rest of the day. She was still thinking about it when she joined the group of mothers outside St. Jeffrey's at 3. She had to admit it was sort of impressive, the smart, martial air exhibited by the 3rd grade as they trooped down the steps. There was to be additional ceremony today. The ranks waited on the sidewalk until Miss Orville passed back and forth in inspection. Stationing herself at the head of the columns, she boomed, Good afternoon, boys and girls. Let us return with perfect papers tomorrow. Good afternoon, Miss Orville. The class sang back in unison, after which the ranks broke. Taking little Amy Lewis in tow, Miss Orville once more nodded at the mothers. Which is she? She asked Amy. Miss Orville approached the trapped Mrs. Lawrence. She cleared her throat, thrust back her shoulders. Amy tells me she is fortunate enough to have a full-time domestic at home, said Miss Orville. May I question whether she is fortunate or deprived? I needn't lecture you, I'm sure, Miss Lewis, about the wisdom of assigning a child tasks to perform at home, setting the table, tidying up one's room, are lessons in self-reliance for the future. Surely you agree? There was a nod from Mrs. Lewis. Excellent, smiled Miss Orville. Amy will inform me in the morning the tasks you have assigned her. Make them plentiful, I urge you. The lecturing, however, was not ended. Turning from Mrs. Lewis, Miss Orville cast her gaze around and inquired, Is Roger Clark's mother present? Yes, spoke Virginia Clark, reaching for Roger's hand. What is it? Miss Orville studied Roger silently for a long moment. A scallywag if ever I met one, she pronounced. The rimless spectacles lifted to the scallywag's mother. You know, of course, that Roger is a prodigy, said Miss Orville. A prodigy of misspelling. Roger, spell flower for us, she ordered. Come, speak up. Roger kept his head lowered. F, he spelled. F-L-O-R. Spell castle. K, spelled Roger. K-A-Z-L. Miss Orville's lips parted grimly. Those are the results, mind you, of an hour's solid work with your son, Mrs. Clark. He does not apply himself. He wishes to remain a child at play, absorbed in his toys. Is that what you want for him? Virginia Clark would have been grateful if the sidewalk had opened up to receive her. As she reported to her husband that evening, she had never in her life been as mortified. Spoke to me in front of all the other mothers in loud clarion tones. She described the scene. Do I want Roger to remain a child at play? Imagine. By the way, where is Raj? Mr. Clark asked, who had come home late from the office. He's not watching television or busy with his airplanes. In his room, doing over his homework for the 98th time. It has to be perfect, he says. But really, Charles, don't you think it was outrageous? Mr. Clark stirred his coffee. I bet Miss Orville doesn't get down on the floor with the class or do Mexican hat dances with them. If that's meant to disparage Miss Wilson. Virginia Clark stacked the dinner dishes irritably. She sometimes found her husband's behavior maddening, especially when he took to grinning at her, as he was presently doing. She also concluded that she'd had her fill of Elizabeth's attitude on the subject. At least some teachers wised up to Raj, had been the Clark daughter's comment. He's cute and all, but I wouldn't want to be in a shipwreck with him. Washing dishes in the kitchen, Mrs. Clark considered that maybe she wouldn't meet Roger in front of the building tomorrow. Maybe she'd wait at the corner instead. His shoes, she gasped, and hurried to remind her son to get out the polishing kit. The spelling, too. She'd better work on that. It was Thursday that Nancy Reeves finally remembered where previously she had seen Miss Orville. Perhaps it was from the shock of having received a compliment from the latter. Mrs. Reeves, I rejoice to inform you of progress, Miss Orville had addressed her, after the third grader performed its military display for the afternoon. On Monday, young Bruce's penmanship was comparable to a chicken's, if a chicken could write. Today, I was pleased to award him an A. A tug of the tweed jacket and the stiff-backed figure walked firmly down the street. Nancy Reeves stared after her until Miss Orville had merged into the flow of pedestrians and traffic. I know who she is, Nancy suddenly remarked, turning to the others. I knew I'd seen her before. Those old ramshackle buildings near us on Hudson Street. Remember when they were torn down last year? The other mothers formed a circle around her. Miss Orville was one of the tenants. Nancy Reeves went on. She'd lived there for ages and refused to budge until the landlord got a court order and deposited her on the sidewalk. I saw her there, sitting in a rocker on the sidewalk, surrounded by all this furniture and plants. Her picture was in the papers. Elderly, retired school teacher. They found a furnished room for her on Jane Street, I think. Poor old thing, evicted like that. I remember she couldn't keep any of the plants. On the way home, after supplying a lurid account of the day's tortures, Miss Awful made Walter Mead stand in the corner for saying a bad word. Roger asked his mother, Eviction, what does that mean? It's when somebody is forced by law to vacate an apartment. The landlord gets an eviction notice and the person has to leave. Kicked her out on the street. Is that what they did to the witch? Don't call her that. It's rude and impolite, Mrs. Clark said, and they turned into the brownstone doorway. I see your father and I have been too easygoing where you're concerned. Huh? We got worse names for her, Roger retorted. Curse names. You should hear them. We're planning how to get even with Miss Awful. Just you see. He paused as his mother opened the downstairs door with her key. That's where the cat used to sleep. Remember? He said, pointing at a corner of the entryway. His face was grave and earnest. I wonder where the cat went to. Hey, Mom! He hurried to catch up. Maybe it was evicted too. Then it was Friday at St. Jeffrey's. Before lunch, Miss Orville told the class, I am happy to inform you that Miss Wilson will be back on Monday. She held up her hand for quiet. This afternoon will be our final session. Not that discipline will relax, but I might read you a story. Robert Louis Stevenson, perhaps. My boys and girls always enjoyed him so. 46 years of them. Joseph Lambert, you're not sitting up straight. You know I don't permit slouchers in my class. It was a mistake to have told your children that Miss Wilson would be back on Monday, that only a few hours of the terrible reign of Miss Awful were left to endure. Even before lunch recess, a certain spirit of challenge and defiance had infiltrated the room. Postures were still erect, but not quite as erect. Tommy Miller dropped his pencil case on the floor and did not request permission to pick it up. So what? He mumbled when Miss Orville remonstrated with him. What did you say? She demanded, drawing herself up. I said, so what? Tommy Miller answered, returning her stare without distress. Roger thought that was neat of Tommy, talking fresh like that. He was surprised, too, because Miss Awful didn't yell at Tommy or anything. A funny look came into her eyes, he noticed, and she just went on with her geography lesson. And when Tommy dropped his pencil case again and picked it up without asking, she said nothing. Roger wasn't so certain that Tommy should have dropped the pencil case a second time. The lunch bell rang then, and he piled out of the classroom with the others, not bothering to wait for permission. At lunch in the basement cafeteria, the third grade talked of nothing except how to get even with Miss Awful. The recommendation showed daring and imagination. "We could beat her up," Joey Lambert suggested. "We could wait at the corner till she goes by and throw rocks at her." "We'd get arrested," Walter Mead pointed out. "Better idea," said Bruce Reeves. "We could go upstairs to the classroom before she gets back, tie a string in front of the door. She'd trip and break her neck." "She's old," Roger Clark protested. "We can't hurt her like that. She's too old." It was one of the girls, actually, who thought of the plant. "That dopey old plant she's always fussing over," piped Midge Fuller. "We could rip out all the dopey leaves. That'd show her." Roger pushed back his chair and stood up from the table. "We don't want to do that," he said, not understanding why he objected. It was a feeling inside. He couldn't explain. Let's forget about it," he said. "Let's call it quits." The plant! The plant! Midge Fuller squealed, clapping her hands. Postures were a good deal worse when the third grade reconvened after lunch. "Well, you've put in an industrious week, I dare say," Miss Orville commented. She opened the frayed volume of Treasure Island which she had brought from home and turned the pages carefully to Chapter 1. "I assume the class is familiar with the tale of young Jim Hawkins, Long John Silver, and the other wonderful characters." "Nope, I ain't," said Tommy Miller. "Ain't? What word is that?" "It's the word ain't," answered Tommy. Ain't, somebody jeered. Miss Orville lowered the frayed volume. "No, children, you mustn't do this," she said with force. "To attend school is a privilege you must not mock. Can you guess how many thousands of children in the world are denied the gift of schooling?" Her lips quavered. "It is a priceless gift. You cannot permit yourselves to squander a moment of it." She rose from her desk and looked down at the rows of boys and girls. "It isn't enough any longer to accept the gift and make no return for it. Not with the world in the shape it's in," she said, spectacles trembling on her bony nose. "The world is not a playbox," she said. "If I have been severe with you this past week, it was for your benefit. The world needs good citizens. If I have helped one of you to grow a fraction of an inch, if just one of you..." She stopped speaking. Her voice faltered. The words dammed up. She was staring at the plant on the windowsill, which she had not noticed before. The stalks twisted up bare and naked where the leaves had been torn off. "You see," Miss Orville said after a moment, going slowly toward the windowsill. "You see what I'm talking about? To be truly educated is to be civilized. Here, you may observe the opposite." Her fingers reached out to the bare stalks. Violence and destruction. She turned and faced the class, and behind the spectacles, her eyes were dim and faded. "Whoever is responsible, I beg of you only to be sorry," she said. When she returned to her desk, her back was straighter than ever, but it seemed to take her longer to cover the distance. At the close of class that afternoon, there was no forming of lines. Miss Orville merely dismissed the boys and girls and did not leave her desk. The children ran out, some in regret, some silent, others cheerful and scampering. Only Roger Clark stayed behind. He stood at the windows, plucking at the naked plant on the seal. Miss Orville was emptying the desk of her possessions, books, pads, folder of maps. "These are yours, I believe," she said to Roger. In her hands were the water pistol, the baseball cards, the spool of string. "Here, take them," she said. Roger went to the desk. He stuffed the toys in his coat pocket without paying attention to them. He stood at the desk, rubbing his hand up and down his coat. "Yes?" Miss Orville asked. Roger stood back, hands at his side, lifted his head erectly. "Flower," he spelled. Flower. He squared his shoulders, looked at Miss Orville's brimming eyes. "Castle," Roger spelled. CSCASTLE. Then he walked from the room. That's our story. I hope y'all liked it. We'll discuss the theme whenever we get back together. You need to answer those questions. The multiple choice ones need to be answered. The ones that are answered in sentence form, you need to make sure you answer those. You were not allowed to skip any of them. You were to do them all. I hope you liked the story. I think it's a great story. It's kind of ironic that a lot of you guys are with a substitute right now and you read about a substitute. One more thing, again, stay out of each other's faces. Keep your hands to yourself. Sanitize your hands. Sanitize your desks. Wear a mask, guys. You need to wear a mask. Wear a mask. Take care. Love you guys. Bye.